Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. If you're on Twitter, go and follow this Twitter account. It's Jockey Cam, I think. Is it just Jockey Cam? At Jockey Cam, where they occasionally get to put a camera on a jockey's helmet. Have a look at some of the footage you can get from this. This is a board contact earlier on this week. And you can really get a sense of how close the horses are, how much room they have, where, how far off the rail they are, how wide horses go in some races. But I don't think we see enough of this. I think, I don't even think they had one in each race, which is disappointing. And I think sometimes they picked horses that were never going to get the best view because they might have been they're front runners. You want to see, if you've only got this is almost at the moment like a gimmick. It's not being used for analysis purposes, or it doesn't feel like it is. Have a look at this view. Yes, it's bumpy, but you're on a horse. But you get to see like how sharp this bend is. Now what we're going to do when we're in the straight. Let's move left, let's move left. Let's move left, here we go. Can we get any movement? Can we go? Are we going to run past anyone? You can see a horse really close on our right hand side there. We are going past a few. And it just gives you an idea of how unlucky some horses are. Particularly, I suggested when I was talking to these earlier in the week that a good view would have been on Chief of Chiefs in the race that he ran in when he was fourth. He's come from a long way back, finished really strongly, and would have been a great camera to have on. I did see, so I tweeted out that, what are the negatives? And one owner did reply, saying that himself and the jockey weren't keen. Why? Why were you not keen? I think this just adds to the transparency of racing. If you want to make racing transparent, allow your jockeys to have cameras on. Long term, how cool would it be? You've had a bet in a race. You can go onto the app, whichever bookmaker. All of the bookmakers have signed up to this. All of the bookmakers pay for this. I think a lot of people would do this. You choose your horse and you sit on your phone, on a tablet, anything like that, as that camera, and you watch the race. And you can really then see, come on, my horse hasn't got a run yet, still hasn't got a run yet. Now it's got a run and we can go. Sometimes on TV you can't always see that. A good example of what you can't always see from the camera angles. There was an Aidan O'Brien horse this week. Was it Little Big Bear? Little Bad Bear? I can't think of his name. One of those, and he was out on the right-hand side, or on the left-hand side of the TV. And it looked like he was in the lead for a long way. But when they showed a different camera angle, he wasn't in the lead for most of the race until the very finish. And yet, on a jockey cam like this, we would have been able to see that. We'd have been able to see the horse over on the left-hand side. And you'd have known that my horse actually needs to gain and isn't stopping, is gaining. If that horse hadn't have got up and had finished the next second, a lot of the analysis would have been hit the front, caught close home. And yet it wasn't. It was actually that he was still making inroads into the leader. It was just the camera angle gave us a poor camera angle, so we couldn't actually see that that horse wasn't in the lead. I mean, these would be brilliant for analysis of, especially for pundits as well, for pundits and punters who go, oh, what a terrible ride, what a terrible ride. Watch it on something like this. You can see that there is absolutely no room for the horse. What is the jockey supposed to do? There's a wall of horses in front of him. There's a wall to the left. He can't get out. When you watch on TV, sometimes there appears to be gaps that aren't there, that genuinely aren't actually there. They appear to be on TV, but when you're on a jockey cam, you would go, oh, actually, I can see why he didn't go for that gap. It is not there. Or vice versa. You could say, actually, that was a really brave move to go for that gap. And praise a ride even more because it didn't even look like there was a gap on the jockey cam. I really think these need to be used more. I don't understand why any jockeys or trainers would have issues with them. At the moment, as it is being used almost as a gimmick, I think the owners of this should really be looking at horses that are held up and finished strongly. Let's see some interesting ones. Let's see some really, fast finishes. Imagine if he was on Rohan earlier today. That would have been a brilliant camera angle. Because Ryan's not riding for a long way, and he's losing ground. But then when he goes for it and gets that gap through, that would have been amazing viewing. But they didn't. I don't know who they picked in that race, but they didn't pick Rohan, or whether they weren't allowed to, or whether they have a maximum limit they can do a day. That's something I really think they need to be pushing more. Get on the interesting horses now to turn it from a gimmick into an actual analysis tool for punters, pundits, trainers, jockeys, jockey coaches. Imagine if you could go back and watch your race from a camera, and your jockey coach could be sitting there going, okay, this is what we did, this is how it went, how do you think this went, tell me. What about now? Why aren't we going for it now? And the jockey coach and the jockey could be analysing it together, and the trainer could be having a look at it. And I just think there's so much potential in this jockey cam, and it is not being used anywhere near its best of its ability yet.